The much anticipated Night City Wire presentation held on June 25th has resulted in an absolute tidal wave of new Cyberpunk 2077 information being released to the public. The 25-minute video gave us a brand new trailer for the game, a Q&A with the game's devs, and various other big new announcements. But that's not all. CD Projekt Red also released 25 minutes of direct feed, brand new B-roll footage of Cyberpunk on the very same day, with a bunch of gorgeous high-resolution screenshots, character renders, and concept art as well. And that's still not all. Various different members of the press were able to get 4 hours of playtime with Cyberpunk 2077, and so we've also received a ton of text and video impressions of that playtime, revealing a ton of information that wasn't even touched upon during the Night City Wire presentation. It's taken a while, but I think I've finally been able to completely absorb and digest the great Cyberpunk Megaton of June 2020. In other words, there is a lot to dig into here, including perhaps the greatest character customization options in video game history. So today, let's begin chipping away at all this crazy new info, beginning with the Night City Wire video itself. I'll break down the entire 2-minute trailer, give my thoughts on what was shown, and point out a few things you may have missed. Then we'll quickly take a look at the rest of the Night City Wire video, including some big announcements that have already got my mind racing with hype. Let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Night City Wire Episode 1 begins with a brand new 2-minute trailer for Cyberpunk 2077. As much as there is to talk about from just watching the trailer as it is presented, perhaps the most important tidbit came from Cyberpunk's lead quest designer, Paolo Sasco, directly after it aired. And that's the fact that everything we see in this 2-minute trailer takes place during the game's prologue. Now that absolutely blew my mind, because as I was watching the thing for the first time, I was just assuming that I was seeing a good chunk of the entire game, but as it turns out, that's not even close to true. CD Projekt Red is keeping this thing under wraps big time. It also tells us that this game's prologue might be the most elaborate prologue in video game history, at least if some of my impressions that I'm about to share are even close to correct. So with that key information in mind, we can now properly deep dive and break down this trailer, which is appropriately named The Gig. To start, we're presented with some gorgeous cinematic shots of Night City. I think any of these shots could work as my wallpaper, so in other words, they look great. This game is going to be absolutely gorgeous, there is no doubt about that. It's also important to note that the streets seem very crowded here. We see a lot of cars in these shots, and a good number of pedestrians as well. Again, keep that in mind for later. This is all supposedly in-game footage, though likely not running on a PS4 or Xbox One. The press that was able to play a demo of the game were playing on PCs equipped with a 2080 Ti. I think there's a good chance the footage we're seeing in this trailer here was similarly captured from a super powerful PC and not the console version. That said, it wouldn't shock me if the next gen version of the game, once released, looks damn near identical to what we're seeing here in the trailer. The entire trailer is narrated through conversations between characters that happen in the game. Primarily, we hear the player character V and your partner in crime, Jackie. This ongoing dialogue gives us a pretty good idea of the prologue's plot, and from the sounds of it, both V and Jackie's overall motivations.
Ready to get your cherry popped?
Jackie is the extroverted one of the two. He's super excited all the time and thinks making it in Night City will make the both of them legends.
Not just any other city. Legends are born here.
V, on the other hand, is a little less optimistic. Every time Jackie tries to hype him up, he's like, it's not that great.
City like any other, just bigger. We're only here because Dex is pulling the strings, unless you catch it both.
Even then, you go out with a bang, right?
I like their ongoing back and forth in this trailer, it's pretty funny. Meanwhile, the various establishing shots of Night City continue throughout pretty much the entire trailer and do a great job setting a tone for the game. We see both the beauty of the neon-lit Night City from above ground and also get a taste of its ugly underworld. The violence, the gangs, the drugs, the clubs, and really the overall nightlife of Night City. I love all of these shots. They all work so well, getting me invested in this big new world and do a great job selling me on this grimy dystopian cyberpunk future. I just want to go explore it right now and interact with all of these cool locations and crazy characters. One of the locations we see pretty frequently in the trailer is called Lizzie's Bar. This is where the Mox gang operates, a gang that V will be coming in contact with regularly throughout the game. We also meet their leader, Judy, and from what I could tell, she seems to be a pretty key character in the game. She's introduced during the prologue and will likely be working with V on many different occasions throughout the game, since she is capable of operating a brain dance machine. Later in the video, we learn that brain dance is an important part of the Cyberpunk 2077 universe and a recurring gameplay mode. I suppose it's possible we'll come across other characters who have a similar brain dance setup in different locations, but it looks like we get started with the first brain dance sequence right here with Judy in a back room at Lizzie's Bar. Perhaps other nightclubs have a similar back room with a BD available for use. After all, as Judy puts it, they are mostly used for flogging the log.
Too bad most of the BDs we do here are only good for flogging the log.
Anyways, we'll talk more about the brain dance sequence and Judy later in the video. Judy is not to be confused with Victor Vector, who seems to be V's main Ripperdoc, aka the guy who installs mechanical enhancements directly into your body. It certainly looks like there's going to be a lot of sequences in this game where you lie down in a chair and just kind of let someone do their crazy cyberpunk thing. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Next up, we get a little peek at what looks like the game's first mission. V is asked to commit grand theft on an auto, and just as he's about to successfully do that, he meets Jackie, at which point the cops show up and everything goes to hell. As it turns out, this is the first mission in the game, but only if you select a certain life path. The 3 life paths is something that wasn't really touched on here in Night City Wire Episode 1, and more specific details may border on spoilery content for some of you watching, so I'll be getting more into the differences between the 3 life paths in my next video, complete with a spoiler warning. We'll get a much better look at this scene in particular when we look at the 25 minutes of B-roll footage that CD Projekt Red has released. Meanwhile, we continue to get bombarded by awesome cyberpunk character designs. Pretty much all of them I've seen look so on point and just oozing with that cyberpunk aesthetic. And I haven't even gotten into the concept art yet, which looks even cooler. One question though, what are those? Are we really playing basketball in flip-flops in the year 2077? I hope these are like some Air Jordan branded cybernetics that make you jump as high as Mike himself. That would at least make sense. Otherwise, what are you doing, man? This outfit is a disaster. Okay, now this is a part of the trailer that really caught my eye. We see Mr. Iron Man's arc reactor in the face guy, also known as Royce. But wait, this scene is familiar. Indeed, we saw this entire mission play out all the way back in 2018 with that original 48-minute gameplay demo. So what that tells me is that hugely elaborate mission is played during the game's prologue. If that's the kind of depth we can expect during the game's opening hours, just how crazy will the missions get during the mid-game or the end game? It also tells me that we've barely seen anything of this game beyond that prologue. It's actually crazy how much of the game they've been holding back. I thought I knew, but I know nothing. Honestly though, that excites me. When you feel like you know a lot about a game, but it actually turns out you know super little, that tells me this game is really, truly massive. But then it gets even crazier. In the 48-minute gameplay demo, Royce is the boss of that mission. But here in the trailer, he gets shot right in the face. Now, either the structure of the mission has changed since 2018, or, depending on your choice here, you can just kill the dude on the spot. Does that mean we could take out bosses before the boss battle even begins? Damn, son, that's some of that elusive next-level Metal Gear Solid 3 design. I approve. Next, we take a seat in Dexter Deshawn's car, and this is also a scene directly from the 48-minute gameplay demo. It quickly becomes clear how much of this trailer is made up of footage from that very mission. I've heard some people say the combat in this game looks uninteresting, but now we know the combat gets this crazy in the game's prologue. How much crazier is it going to get as you advance further into the game and you have an insane amount of upgrades? The next part of the trailer that really caught my eye is this shot of the player driving around in the Badlands. Seeing this here surprised me because I always figured the Badlands was more of a mid-game location. Like eventually we'd be driven out of Night City for some reason or another and end up in this crazy, lawless Mad Max desert area. But obviously that must happen pretty early on, as we see the player will visit this location during the game's prologue. It looks like V finds himself on the outskirts of Night City and needs to find a way in. It makes you wonder just how much of the world will we be exposed to during the prologue? Will it all be accessible from the get-go, or is some of it closed off until we progress a certain amount through the story? At this point, we hear V asking Dexter Deshawn what exactly the gig is, and if the idea is to get out alive. Jackie laughs. You won't be laughing later, pal. Anyways, Dex explains that he's after a special biochip that could grant immortality. That sounds pretty useful. Ultimately, it seems like the entire prologue is leading up to this massive heist, and that's the gig. We then get some footage of what looks to be this heist at the Arasaka building, and man, does that building look cool, both inside and out. If I had to guess, the Arasaka Corporation is probably going to play an important role in the game's overall story. Also during this mission, it looks like we meet RoboCop, aka Adam Smasher, which is one of the best names I've ever heard. This dude looks super intimidating, like final boss material, and I love his design so much. It also makes me think, just how far will they let us go when it comes to customizing our character? So far, both female and male V look pretty human. But as the game goes on, you have to figure we'll be getting installed with more and more cyberware. By the end, could we possibly look like Adam Smasher, where we're like 1% organic human and 99% robot? Many other NPCs in the game barely resemble a human as well, and they kinda look cool as hell. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but it doesn't seem like we'll be able to go quite that far for the prologue at the very least. Oh yeah, now that is a GIF. That is a GIF right there. Let's watch that again in slow-mo. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. These third-person shots of driving through the city, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Wait a minute. Did I just see something?
Wait a minute. Go right. Enhance 5719.
Dandelion cocktails? Is that a Witcher reference? I feel like that won't be the last Witcher reference we see in Cyberpunk 2077. Just a feeling. Yo, we can install the Iron Man wrist missile thing. If this game lets me live out my Tony Stark fantasy, I am so in. No offense, Avengers. No offense, Iron Man VR. Cyberpunk is out here making dreams come true. Finally, the trailer ends with V and Jackie making their escape from the massive Arasaka building by jumping out the window and sliding down. Holy crap. I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume they don't get out of that situation without a couple bruises. But perhaps the most interesting part of the trailer takes place after the title pops up. We get this little post-credit scene of sorts, and I'm pretty damn sure this is the in-game version of the scene we saw play out in the E3 2019 cinematic trailer. Same location, same hallway, same bloody hand, same staring in the mirror, and as I put all the puzzle pieces together, it all starts to make sense. This cinematic trailer was showing us the very end of the game's prologue. V barely gets out of the gig alive, but Jackie is not so lucky. Spoilers, Jackie dies, or is very, very badly injured. Well, evidently it's not much of a spoiler since CD Projekt Red showed this to us over a year before the game's launch. Anyways, we then see the exact same events play out. V confronts Dexter Deshawn to deliver the chip and collect his reward. There's a brawl, and Dex shoots and kills V. Or so he thought. Later, we see that V has come to, where he meets Johnny Silverhand. And with Keanu now in the picture, the prologue is over and the game truly begins. This marks the third time a Cyberpunk trailer has ended on Keanu, which is pretty funny. But hey, he's a big star and he seems to play a major role in the game's story. So it's all good. I also think it's worth mentioning that given how important player choice is in this game, and how drastically the events of the game's story could change depending on your choices, I think there's actually a good chance we are given the ability to get out of the gig and the game's prologue without Jackie meeting his ultimate demise. It certainly seems like a strangely major plot point to give away in a pre-release trailer, so it wouldn't shock me if CD Projekt Red is kind of messing with us here, and when we get control of V, this scene doesn't necessarily play out in the exact same way. Misdirection. I love it. All in all, that was one hell of a trailer, especially when you slow it down, watch it again, and really pay attention to both what you're seeing and hearing. And with all that info in mind, we can start to craft a bit of a timeline here. The majority of what we've seen of the game takes place during the prologue, but the 15-minute deep dive video released in August of 2019 seemed to completely focus on content that takes place after the prologue. Jackie doesn't appear at all in that video, and we see a lot more of Johnny Silverhand. Johnny appears to be some kind of ghost that only V can see. It's also interesting to note that Johnny's movements at the end of the new trailer matches V's, so there definitely seems to be some kind of connection there as well. I think it's safe to say that V surviving his encounter with Dex Deshawn has something to do directly with Johnny. All I know is this: no matter what choices you make or what life path you take, we are in for one hell of an opening sequence when we first get our hands on Cyberpunk 2077, and I can't even imagine how much things are going to escalate during the main game. Before wrapping up for today, let's go through the rest of Night City Wire Episode 1 for any other new info I may have missed. It's at this point that we get a Q&A with Powell Sasko, where he explains that the entire trailer is just from the game's prologue. He also goes over the Mox Gang and their backstory, as well as the role the Badlands area will play in the game. As expected, we're going to see a bunch of content, vehicles, and quests that are unique to the Badlands, which sounds really exciting to me. I think the more natural setting of the Badlands is going to provide an awesome contrast to the completely technologically enslaved Night City. Next, we get into some concrete details on the next-gen version of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this is a little bit confusing, but it's all good news. If you buy Cyberpunk on Xbox One or PS4, you will receive an enhanced Series X or PS5 version of the game, free of charge. From the looks of things, Cyberpunk will be launching just days before the next generation consoles launch, so the timing is actually pretty good here if you want to play the game entirely on next-gen hardware. CD Projekt Red actually provided some more details on the whole next-gen situation during a conference call held when the game was delayed. They explained that the day next-gen consoles are released, Cyberpunk will look better when played on the machines. I suspect this means the game will run at a higher resolution, higher frame rate, and probably have much faster load times as well. However, I wouldn't expect much more than that. Luckily, a more robust next-gen update for Cyberpunk will be released sometime in 2021. Again, this will be provided to anyone who owns the game free of charge. For this more robust update, I'd expect a number of visual enhancements and content additions. We know ray tracing will be a part of the PC version of the game, and I'm certain it'll be added in some form to the PS5 and Series X versions in 2021. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw new weapons, vehicles, and cosmetics added to the game as well. This will also give CD Projekt Red a chance to clean up some of the imperfections that were seen in the trailer. I've seen a lot of complaints about pop-in, and unfortunately, that's just been unavoidable with most open-world titles this generation. With next-gen and the super-fast SSDs becoming the new standard, I'd expect this kind of thing to be gone completely. Some also noticed a few shots in the trailer where the streets and clubs of Night City looked pretty dead. Certainly a far cry from that 48-minute gameplay demo where pedestrians were absolutely everywhere. Now, for performance reasons, it wouldn't surprise me if CD Projekt Red had to lower that pedestrian count to optimize the game and make things run properly. That said, it could easily just be a time of day thing. Most of the shots were taken at night for this trailer, so it makes sense there'd be less people out and about. Either way, I'd expect this substantial next-gen update to increase the amount of traffic and number of pedestrians on screen at any given time. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get the ultimate dream, an optional third-person mode. The perfect way to get players to replay the game when the next-gen version is released. Of course, that's all just speculation, but I hope CD Projekt Red brings the goods with this update when it releases in 2021. Next up, we got the announcement of the new Cyberpunk anime. Cyberpunk Edgerunners will be coming to Netflix in 2022 and will be animated by the legendary Studio Trigger. Now, longtime subscribers to my channel may know that few things bring me joy quite like a well-animated anime. And looking at this unbelievable staff list for Cyberpunk Edgerunners, this show is virtually guaranteed to kick ass and will certainly look incredible. The fact that this is a thing doesn't surprise me at all. After The Witcher's success on Netflix and subsequent boost in popularity on the game side, I'm sure both CD Projekt Red and Netflix wanted a Cyberpunk-related project greenlit as quickly as possible. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if a live-action Cyberpunk 2077 show eventually became a reality, especially if the game is a massive success. But for now, we have an anime, a medium that has been tied to the cyberpunk genre since almost the very beginning. There is no shortage of great, iconic cyberpunk anime that has clearly influenced the world of Cyberpunk 2077 and really the overall cyberpunk genre in general. Now we go the other way with an anime adaptation of Cyberpunk 2077. Expectations are absolutely lofty given all of that history, but I do think if anyone is up to the task, it's this super team over at Studio Trigger. With such talent involved, I think there's a good chance that Edgerunners could be the next great, iconic cyberpunk anime out of Japan. To wrap things up, let's take a look at the Braindance editor. Now, these detective modes are nothing new to video games. Heck, they're nothing new to CD Projekt Red video games. In fact, this kind of stuff is a staple in cyberpunk media as well, so I fully expected to see something like that here in Cyberpunk 2077. All that to say, it's not super interesting to watch and pretty self-explanatory. You kind of get the gist of it after about 10 seconds, but this thing just kept going for a good 7 minutes. That said, I don't doubt that solving a Braindance puzzle in the actual game will be super satisfying and, in a lot of ways, add to the game's lore and flesh out certain characters and their various roles in Night City. But this specific Braindance that we saw in the video was clearly the first one you do in the entire game, and Judy chimes in every 5 seconds to tell you what to do next. It's basically a tutorial for the mode. I'm sure these will get more and more elaborate as the game goes on, and we even got a quick peek at another one in the trailer, so I bet these sequences are fairly common. But look, let's be completely honest here. The real star of this little demo is Judy. I think she might be my new favorite character in this game. I love her design, her voice is awesome, and that hair. Look at that hair. That is next-gen hair. Honestly, some of the best I've ever seen in a game. Damn, that looks good. Judy, you're pretty good.
His own Jumba shot him.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up for today. Night City Wire Episode 1 provided a ton of new Cyberpunk 2077 info, but we've only just scratched the surface. In my next video, which I hope to have up in a few days, I'll analyze the 25 minutes of B-roll footage that CD Projekt Red released for the game, and as you'd probably expect, there is a whole lot of juice to squeeze out of that footage as well. Then we'll take a look at all of the new screenshots, concept art, and text impressions from the press that was able to get hands-on time with the game. That will be another video because there is legit so much new info to take in that I'd be going on for hours, and I'm still taking notes from all the various impressions and articles as we speak. By the time I'm done breaking all of that down, we're probably going to be close to Night City Wire Episode 2, which is set to air in a couple of weeks. So please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more Cyberpunk 2077 videos and breakdowns like this, because I think we are fully on the hype train to launch from here on out, and there's no stopping this train. But that's going to do it for today, so until next time, thanks so much for watching everyone, and take care.